following is a special presentation from the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame.
Hi everybody, Joe Aiello here. Honored to be your MC tonight in the 2020 Football Manitoba virtual presentation of the Hall of Fame inductions. This is going to be a fantastic night. Obviously a little bit different than what we're used to, but here are the positives. You're not going to have me directing you to the bathrooms tonight, and of course the bar is open for, well, as long as you need it to be open tonight. All right, at this time, let's bring in Bill Johnson from Football Manitoba to tell us a little bit about tonight.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for the celebration of these incredible individuals. My name is Bill Johnson. I'm the Executive Director with Football Manitoba. It's been a very strange process for this induction class. In 2020, as we were preparing a press conference to announce this class and begin our planning and celebrations, we were told we would need to postpone. So we anticipated a 2-week delay, and now here we are almost 2 years later. I'd like to thank our planning committee for their ability and willingness to pivot more than a few times in this past year. Their flexibility and their creativity have allowed us this opportunity to celebrate these more than deserving individuals. I would also, of course, like to congratulate the inductees from this year's class and to thank them for what they have done for football in this province. I look forward to a time very soon when we are able to celebrate together in person. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Bill. At this time, some special messages from some dignitaries involved in sport and, of course, the world of football.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jim Mullen here in beautiful Bowen Island, British Columbia, on the unceded ancestral lands of the Tsleil-Waututh and the Squamish people. On behalf of Football Canada, I congratulate the current round of inductees into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. For those being inducted as builders, I will say that we as a game in Canada would not be where we are without the time and commitment you have extended to the game. To the players who are being inducted, you are a role model to our youth who see what hard work, dedication, and talent can achieve. For the officials, we do not have a game without your professionalism that your group exhibits on the field every time that you step on it. For the coaches, we don't have a game without the countless number of hours you give to our youth in developing their skills as a player and, more importantly, as an individual. From a grateful Gridiron Nation, thank you once again and congratulations on this accomplishment. Have a fantastic induction.
Hello, I'm Russell Walls, President of Football Manitoba. On behalf of the Board of Directors and myself, I want to congratulate this year's Hall of Fame class. I also want to thank you for paving and growing the sport of football in our province and in our country. I am glad that we are able to celebrate this honor and achievement. Once again, congratulations to this year's Hall of Fame class.
As the Minister of Sport, Culture and Heritage for the province of Manitoba, it's my sincere pleasure to join everyone today. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking from Treaty 1 territory and the homeland of the Métis Nation. I'd also like to offer my sincere congratulations to all of the inductees that we are honoring here this year. Thank you to the players, the coaches, teams, and builders for your tremendous contributions to the wonderful game of football. Your place in the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame is well-deserved and well-earned and will go down in history. And I hope you all take some time to reflect on all of the positive experiences and accomplishments you have earned throughout your football careers. A big thanks to my friend Rick Hankowich, chairperson of the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame, and the entire selection committee for identifying this year's very worthy inductees. These past 18 months have been difficult for all of us, and I know that the pandemic has been especially challenging for our football community. That's why it's so important that we gather today to celebrate the achievements together. And I can't think of a better way to share our stories and our passion for the game than being here today. I know that there was nothing more exhilarating and exciting than watching the excitement of the crowd as they recently cheered on our Bombers to victory at Investors Group Field. The Hall of Fame is so important. It celebrates and promotes the rich legacy of football in our province by acknowledging the lasting contributions of our great players, coaches, officials, builders, and volunteers who have given so much to our sport. So to this year's inductees and to your families, you should all feel very proud. And I join with all Manitobans in honoring you and your amazing achievements. Congratulations again.
All right, the moment we've been waiting for. Time for our first recipient. Let's hear from Bud Ulrich and Brian Marks.
My name is Bud Ulrich, and I'd like to say a few words about Lou and his family. And I'm a neighbor of Lou's and Clara. We live in the same block and same building. We became very good friends. And interestingly enough, when I was attending the funeral of Lou, I heard his son speak, and I thought to myself, of all of the accolades and things that Lou did on the football field, this man is definitely a candidate for the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. And from there, it just became a progression where we were able to gather data, information, and although some of the press clippings had been gone, we were able to dig up a few more and come with a real good nomination. And together with Brian, we were able to get Lou inducted into the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. And we're so pleased to be able to do that. And I know it's a great thrill for the family, and equally it's a great thrill for me. And I'm so glad that I got to get to know Lou over the few years that we talked football. And having taught at St. John's Tech, or St. John's High School for 16 years, I had a good connection with Lou because we both knew the place very well. So indeed, it's really nice to be able to come to this moment today and experience Lou Bernstein being inducted into the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame.
My name is Brian Marks, and it's my honor to introduce Lou Bernstein as an inductee into the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. I was pleased to be able to meet Lou in 2010 when St. John's High School had its 100th anniversary, and we had many, many interactions, and we talked at length about his life in football in the 1940s at St. John's High School. He played for the Tigers in the early 40s, I've said. He was the leading rusher and scorer in high school football as a halfback at that time. He was instrumental in the school's back-to-back championships in 1941 and 1942, and there's a great number of newspaper articles and statistics that showed that his skills were very much appreciated at the time. But I think what illustrates things the most is that in 2010, when we had the 100th anniversary of the school, I put out a notification to people asking for nominees to the Winnipeg High School Football League Hall of Fame or the St. John's High School Hall of Fame. A huge number of submissions came in for Lou Bernstein. He was held at the same level as such names as Norman Hill, Al Miller, and the very first Harry Hood winner, Bert Aikens. But he had the greatest number of submissions of any person that was nominated to be in the Winnipeg High School Football League at that time. And I think all of the people who wrote in gave me an indication of how well thought of he was as a football player in high school. As one person said in their submission, the guy was the best I ever saw. It is my honor and privilege to introduce Lou Bernstein as one of this year's inductees into the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame.
Indeed, I'm very happy and pleased to be able to present this certificate in honor of Lou Bernstein on behalf of the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame to you and your family, Clara.
Thank you.
All the best.
My family and I would like to thank everyone involved in the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame induction of Lou Bernstein. My late husband would have been ecstatic to receive this incredible honor. We're also appreciative to the organization and especially to the past chairman, Bud Ulrich, for the tremendous effort in compiling the data, photos, etc. Thank you, Bud. Lou was a star player for the St. John's High School Tiger team and was inducted into the Winnipeg High School Football League Hall of Fame in 2010, as will be shown. After high school, while playing football for the Manitoba Bisons, Lou was offered a football scholarship to the University of Miami. He declined, stayed in Winnipeg, and chose me as his bride. We were married for 71 years. All through Lou's life, he was known as a football legend. But as far as he was concerned, his claim to fame was his 4 children, 18 grandchildren, and soon to be 14 great-grandchildren. He was extremely proud of all of them.
A big shout out to one of our major sponsors here tonight, NRS Mail and Consulting. Thank you very much for your support. At this time, I'd like to call in, a guy that's done a lot of work with football here in Manitoba over the years. Actually, I believe still to this day has one of the most prolific mustaches in all of Manitoba. Reminds me of Charles Bronson in Death Wish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a dated reference for you. How about a big hand at home for Rick Hankowicz?
Hi, my name is Rick Hankowicz, and I have the honor, besides being the chairman of the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame Committee, I have the absolute honor to be able to do the presentation for induction for Sean Churchill. I met Sean Churchill 8 years ago when I became the commissioner of the Winnipeg High School Football League, and was quickly taken back by how much passion Sean had for football in the province and for high school football itself. Sean was always a face for our league and for football in Manitoba. Sean would buck the trend with his bosses, and he would do his sportscast on the evening news from a high school game going on in the background, and he loved every second of it. Unfortunately, Sean got transferred to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and with that passion went with him. We have been very lucky to have been blessed by Sean's presence, by his passion, by everything he did for football, amateur football in this province. So Sean, I really do take great pleasure in welcoming you to the 2020 class of the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. I have here your plaque, which I will send to you. I understand, unfortunately, due to COVID, that getting here was not the easiest thing for you to do. I hope to be able to drive this out to Saskatoon to see you and deliver it in person. Sean, thank you for everything you've done, and congratulations on your induction to the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame, class of 2020.
Congratulations, Sean Churchill, one of the great guys that I got a chance to meet in the media business over the years. Well deserved. And so is this gentleman coming up in just a couple of minutes. Our next recipient is well honored as well. And so is the man to introduce him. Here is Wab Canoe.
Well, I'm very happy to be able to say a few words on behalf of my friend Kevin Hart as he's inducted into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. You know, I've known Kevin for a number of years in very different capacities and different walks of life, and it's been a real pleasure to see him rise from, of course, being a football player to being active in the community, and now into the leadership role that we're familiar with him these days. And of course, throughout, I know that sport has been a very important part of his life. And as he is walking into these different arenas that he's in today, as a political leader, as an elected First Nations leader, as a strong voice in the community, I hope that all of his former teammates and coaches and everyone who knew him from his football days is very proud of the fact that they played a role in helping to bring him to the spot that he is in his life. You know, for me, I'm a big believer in sport. I know that the long-term athlete development model that we pursue these days is a great way to help ensure that young people can learn those valuable life lessons to carry them through the rest of their days. And I'm sure that Kevin would say the same thing. And it's been, you know, I think probably the motivation that you've seen him active with that diversity task force, trying to promote inclusion in sport, trying to promote more active living among young people. Because again, we can have fun on the football field, we can have fun playing the sport itself, but the interactions with our teammates, with our coaches, I think those are the lessons, those are the memories that help us form the character that we count on when we think of people like Kevin Hart. And if I could just reflect on a personal level, I remember one time when we were university aged, we were going to go to the park and just play a little bit of football. And I was kind of joking around a bit with some of my friends, and I was saying like, oh, we're playing flag. Why don't we play a little bit of tackle while we're out there? And of course, I was just joking around, but my friend who I was talking to got real serious all of a sudden. He goes, tackle? Oh no, have you seen Kevin Hart and his brother? There's no way we can play tackle. So anyways, all that to say, Kevin's reputation precedes him, and I couldn't think of a better guy to be honored tonight with his induction to the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame.
Kevin, on behalf of Football Manitoba, the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame, and more, being an old coach of yours and somebody who sang your praises many times as somebody whose name was never called, I have to thank you for everything that you've done for football in this province, for the First Nations kids, and your good hard work that you're performing right now with Football Canada in getting football into the Aboriginal community. So on behalf of that, I have to thank you very much. I congratulate you on this induction. As a former coach, it's well deserved. I will make no bones about that. It's absolutely well deserved. Your plaque and a hat that I hope to see you wearing all the time.
Hey, for sure. Hansen, Bego Patagase and Disnika so Maspan to them. The name the grandfather has given me is one voice. I am from the Bear Clan. I'm a proud member of the Nishnawasi Cree Nation, which is part of the Treaty 5. I now make my home in the Treaty 1 First Nations of the Saugeen First Nation. It's indeed an honor and a great privilege to be here today, to be honored and inducted into this hall amongst so many great people. For me, football was something that was very important to me. Even from a young child growing up on the Pasquayak Cree Nation, we played football. It was tackle football. Didn't matter if you were a boy or a girl. I'm sure a lot of times when those playing res football will tell you there was a lot of times when we were left crying walking off that football field. So, we bring that down into present day Winnipeg. Of course, because of the lack of infrastructure in our First Nation communities, we didn't have a high school. So I had to come to Winnipeg to come to high school. I went to the Daniel McIntyre Collegiate, where I was introduced to the sport of football for the first time from Coach Brad Perper, as well as Coach George Knitsky. Well, I want to thank them for introducing us. At that time, there weren't many First Nation or Indigenous players in the Winnipeg High School Football League. I believe at the time I could probably count on one hand the number of First Nation Indigenous football players we've seen in the league here in the high school league. Now we go all these years forward and we have a large segment of First Nation Indigenous kids playing football competitively, both at the midget, the junior levels and such, in the minor levels. But most importantly, we made and broke down barriers in football when we talk about the women's program, the girls program here in Manitoba. It's been able to break down those barriers. I'm proud of my nieces. I'm proud of all the Indigenous talent that's out there. I believe for us here in Winnipeg, with an Indigenous population ever growing of over 80,000 right now, that we truly indeed have at least one athlete there each and every year that can compete at the university level, that can compete at a CFL level, and we've certainly proven that. I've proven that by breaking down barriers in a football program with the Winnipeg Hawkeyes, in our junior program being a league all-star. I want to thank the Winnipeg Hawkeyes organization. I want to thank people like George Budnick and their board who kept the Hawkeyes program alive for many, many years. It was a program that was born in the North End here in Winnipeg. And I think programs such as that, if we had more involvement of Indigenous and First Nation kids, I think that we could reach a lot more children out there and a lot more kids. I know certainly for myself and for my brothers that football was an outlet that certainly saved our lives. It could have went as easy as a coin flip for us being statistics here on the streets in Winnipeg, whether it be us, being dead from various crimes, us being in prison because of being involved in criminal activity. If it wasn't for football that changed my life, I don't think I would be where I am today. I come from a very humble background where growing up, we didn't have running water. We didn't have much food in that. I left home at an early age to come here in the streets of Winnipeg. I did indeed become homeless at a young age. But I say that if it wasn't for football, I don't think that I'd be here today. Lots of people to thank. I know that at the time when I joined the Hawkeyes, I was indeed recruited by the Manitoba Bisons. I want to thank Harold Jackman, who at the time was one of the coaches, as well as Rick Hankowich, who was one of the coaches at the Bisons at the time, for being that recruit, for looking out and taking interest in a First Nation boy such as myself, who at the time I can honestly say was teetering on the verge of reality that's happening with so many of our people nowadays. We want to break down those barriers. I want to thank and give thanks to all my teammates on the Winnipeg Senior Mustangs Football Club, and acknowledge people like Barry Wall, who brought forth the Canadian Senior Football League, as well as people like Otto Gebhardt, as well as our coaching staff and our trainers, Mike, and of course, we think of Nancy as well as Karen and such. But most importantly, my brothers on the gridiron. If it wasn't for you guys, I wouldn't be here today. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. There are very critical times in my life that if I didn't have football, I honestly have to say that I do not know where I would be here in this day and age. I could have been easily 6 feet under the ground or laying in a prison cell in Stony Mountain. There's so many silenced and forgotten voices out there that just need that hand up and that hand out, to lift them up and give them that second, third chances. Because, if it wasn't for the people in my life and the football coaches I had in my life that gave me those chances and helped me become the athlete that I was, to break down those barriers, I'm proud of the accomplishments of being a league all-star. I'm proud of the accomplishments of winning a junior championship, as well as winning various and numerous senior national championship titles with the Winnipeg Mustangs Football Club. So last but not least, I want to thank my children. I want to thank my elders, my parents. I want to thank my family, my brothers and sisters, but most importantly, I just want to give thanks to all the First Nation boys and girls out there that are looking for an outlet. I just want to tell you all that football saved my life, and that if you find those outlets out there and you find your gifts, I'm sure you'll be able to accomplish many things and break down many barriers like I did. I want to give thanks to you, and I lift everybody up that has been with me on this journey along the way. I give Creator's thanks and blessings for this day. Hi, hi.
We'd like to thank our good friends over at the Pine Ridge Golf Club for being one of our major sponsors here tonight, and all their support, of course, throughout the year. Time to hand out another award. That's what it's all about tonight. Here is our next recipient.
Hi, my name is Gordon Johnson, and I'm accepting this plaque on behalf of my son Glenn, who's being inducted into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. I'll just give you a brief resume of some of the highlights of Glenn's career as an official. He began his officiating amateur football in Winnipeg at the age of 18 as a member of the Manitoba Football Officials Association. He started at 9-man, atom, and bantam leagues. Eventually worked his way up through the Winnipeg High School Football League, the Prairie Junior Conference, and the University League. He held a number of volunteer positions at the MFOA Executive. He earned 1 Hardy Cup assignment. He officiated 1 junior national semifinal game. He began officiating in the CFL at the age of 29 in 1990. He officiated 416 games in the CFL over 24 seasons. He became the head referee for 14 years. He earned 11 Grey Cup assignments, including the 100th Grey Cup game in 2012, the infamous 13-man Grey Cup game in 2009, and he was involved in the second overtime Grey Cup game in history in 2005. He was a member of the CFL Rules Committee representing the officials that were working for 7 years. He became an executive member of the CPFOA, Canadian Professional Football Officials Association. He led the negotiation and successful completion of the first ever CFL's employment contract with the commissioner at that time, Tom Wright. He became VP of officiating for 2 seasons, and he eventually became the Senior Vice President of Football Operations for 2 more seasons. He chaired the Rules Committee meeting for the CFL for 6 seasons. He led many major initiatives to improve player safety. He signed the first ever officiating exchange and development program with the NFL. He introduced major improvements to the game, to the rule changes to improve player safety, to increase scoring, and increase the number of big plays. And he succeeded in significantly reducing penalties. He introduced major improvements to instant replay, and he also introduced the coaches' video tablets on the sidelines. He became a member of the International ODA Committee for Officiating for 4 years in all major pro sports. My dad and I remain the only father and son to officiate in Grey Cup games.
Gord, on behalf of Football Manitoba, I would like to present you with a certificate to your son, Glenn, who was not only a local official here, but rose to become the head of the CFL officials and an amazing contributor to football in Manitoba. He followed in your footsteps, although he never flagged me, I must admit. But again, please accept the plaque, the hat, and the shirt on behalf of Glenn.
I will.
And again, congratulations to the Johnson family as well.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Welcome back, everybody. Another award in just a couple of seconds here. Our major sponsor, Frankie's Italian Kitchen and Bar. If you can try it out there on Sterling Line Parkway, me personally, I would appreciate it since my retirement is waging on you getting there at some point. So thank you very much. One guy who's never missed a pizza he didn't like, I can tell you this because I know the family very well. I actually know his brother even better than I do him. Dennis Radlinski, one North End boy, introducing and honoring another one.
It is with great pleasure and honor that I have this opportunity to introduce Harry Jackman, a great coach, teammate, mentor, and friend into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame class of 2020. 3 minutes is barely enough time to summarize Harry's lengthy contributions to the game of football and his accomplishments as a player. As a kid, we have no idea how the game will grab us as we reach for it. Football teaches us things that our parents and teachers didn't or can't. Football grabbed young Harry at a young age of 11 years old for the Old X Ospreys in 1973. Harry grabbed football and never let go. In 1974, he helped the Old X Ospreys to a city championship with other high-profile notable teammates like Mike Kelly, Tony Ross, and Andy Arapko. In 1975, Harry and his St. Clair Park Sabres won the city title for six-man, together with Rick Cooting, Dan Sylvester, Terry Dimitrick, and Dave Cold Supper Kramer. The thrill of physical competition and camaraderie, and maybe a bit of fitness, motivated young Harry. In 1976, Harry moved up to the North Winnipeg Nomad Bantam program and his first exposure to offensive line. A natural brute, Harry was a league all-star in his first year, and in high school, he focused on leadership, honing his technique, and being a natural leader on offense. In 1977, Harry went to where grade 9 shave and grade 10s drove, Tech Vaughan High School. Head coach Bill Stamen noticed he had a gifted football player on his hands, and Harry was a league all-star in his freshman year. In 1978, he started at right guard, team captain, first team all-star, team MVP, and top lineman in the Winnipeg High School Football League. With such accolades and recognition, he used these natural gifts to seize an opportunity to play college football in the U.S. Not just play, but dominate. Harry was now grabbing football for all it was worth, making the most of his new career. In 1979, North Dakota State School of Science head coach Al Grange made Harry the starting right tackle in his freshman year. First team all-conference NDCAC. In 1980, North Dakota State School of Science moved him seamlessly to right tackle, where he duplicated his masterful performance and was named first team all-conference and runner-up top lineman in the conference. In 1981, North Dakota State School of Science dropped cosmetology, which forced Harry to transfer to Moorhead State, whose cosmetology faculty was highly regarded. Head coach Fortier put Harry in a familiar spot, right tackle. Continued dominance allowed Harry to continue his impressive run of accolades. Northern Sun Conference All-Star in 1982 in his office at right tackle. All-Conference and All-Region top lineman. I hope Harry took some shots at Tech Vaughan. He'll need a bigger trophy case. His reward for his hard work and dedication and skill, Harry was drafted in 1983 in the 5th round by the BC Lions, playing next to such greats as Al Wilson and Big John Blaine. He was traded to the Bombers in 1984. He had stops in Ottawa and Hamilton. And in 1991, the Canadian Senior Mustangs picked up what we thought is the missing piece and contributed immensely to one Canadian senior title, multiple Western titles, and provincial titles. In 2002 and 2004, he played for the Calgary All-Stars with CFL notables Pee Wee Smith and Marvin Pope. In 2017, the Nomad Seniors played St. Thomas University at 58 years old. With the Hawkeyes, Bisons, and Rifles, he left an impressive coaching legacy. Football is a gift, and a gift not shared is wasted. He changed lives through the game, as football is life. And I can't imagine Harry's life without football. I was thrilled when I found out I was doing the introduction for Harry to get into the Hall of Fame. He, as all yourselves, are joining an impressive and revered group of football leaders. This recognition can be a tool, a gift that allows each and every one of you to publicly celebrate, emotionally defend, and actively coach this great game. Make the most of these gifts. It is with great pleasure that I welcome Jarrod Jackman to the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame class of 2020.
Harry, it gives me absolute pride and from my heart to welcome you to the 2020 Hall of Fame. Knowing you as long as I have, knowing what you have done, how you've contributed and given back to this great sport of ours, and knowing that you're going to continue to do it with RAD and everything else, I am so proud to be able to be the one to present you with this award. Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Zlazny. I couldn't think of a better individual in my life right now than you to present me. I appreciate it. So I am truly humbled and blessed to receive this award. I thank you to the Hall of Fame committee for my selection in the class of 2020 Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. Congratulations to all class inductees, in particular Kevin, Wade, David, and Big Chris, who I have a direct football family connection with. Congratulations, guys. So over the past 18 months, I've had time to reflect on football and how football has been a part of my life. And like so many here tonight, football has made me who I am today. Having spent more than 40 years involved in this great game, I have many people to thank. Without them, I'm not here tonight. I was introduced to football by my lifelong friend, mentor, and first coach, John Kotovich, in 1973 at Old Exhibition Community Center. Six-man football was my first exposure. Phil Shaman, my head coach at Techvoc High School, who with the kindness of a ride down I-29 forever changed my life in the spring of 1979. Thank you, Phil. John Richmond, my position coach at Moorhead State University. He taught me the game of football, but more importantly, he taught me the game of life. For that, I am forever grateful. Thank you, John. Throughout all the levels of football that I have been blessed to have the opportunity to play, I have had numerous great teammates. Far too many to name, but there is a select group that I do have to mention. Ken Norman, Ed Bowes, Steve Schauer, Dennis Eastman, Greg Veldman, Joe Jakes, Jerry Allen, Warner Miles, Al Wilson, John Bonk, Mark Moores, Team 56, Frankie Smith, Jim Reed, Bill Hajuk, Chris Helgeson, and last but not least, Andre Lambert. I thank you all. And I have a special shout out to all my life friends through football, as I call them. Dennis Radlinski, Rick, Tim Kiss, Richard Urbanovich, Mark Erickson, Dwayne Hyssop, Scott Spurgeon, Mike Watson, and Mr. South End Tuning Fork at Griffith Stadium. A special thank you to my wife, Gayleen Jackman, for being all that you are to me. In closing, this North End kid from Pritchard Avenue would like to share with all the future generations of gridiron gamers, it is okay to dream. If you surround yourself with good people, if you put in the work, if you trust your coaches, if you care about your teammates, you too can live a dream. So I want to share with you this story. In the summer of 1982, heading into my senior year at Moorhead State, I happened to be at a fashion show. Also in attendance, my childhood idol. In between runway events, I walked over and waited to catch his attention. Chris Walby, I said, I'm going to play my butt off this year, and one day, I hope to play beside you. Kids, dreams do come true. And Bluto, congratulations and thank you for the memories. God bless everyone.
At this time, we'd like to take a second to just thank one of our major sponsors, Pratt's Wholesale, the Baranek family, who do so much in this community. Thank you very much. As we move on, we have a special video for you put together by the great Rick Schultz and his former teammates.
Hello, Gordonville Panther coaches Bob Wilkes and Bob Lawler. My name is Rick Schultz, number 45, 1974 Gordonville Panther, City Champs. It's my honor to host this collage of past players and family that will induct you into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. The confidence and self-esteem you instilled upon us all has benefited us all a lifetime. On behalf of all Panther alumni and your families, we congratulate you on your induction.
Congratulations, Mr. Wilkes, Mr. Lawler, on your inductee into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame in football. The congratulations comes from me, Ken, and my departed brother, Bruce. All the best to you guys. That is a long time coming, but you guys finally got it. Take care. Have a good day.
This is Martin Klaponsky. I was a team member on the Gordon Bell Panthers from 1972, 73, 74. I remember Coach Wilkes and Lawler very well. They always conducted themselves with the utmost integrity and care for their players, and I think it's wonderful that they're getting this honor at the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. Congratulations.
Hi, my name is Dennis Chambers, number 52 from the Gordon Bell Panthers, championship teams of 73 and 74. Congratulations, Coach Lawler and Coach Wilkes, on your induction into the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. And it's well deserved, and you were very instrumental in shaping me as the fine older man I turned out to be. And my favorite speech, it comes from the head and it comes from the heart. I hope you remember that, and congratulations again.
This is Lance Noseg coming to you from Vancouver, number 29 on the 73 and 74 championship teams that were coached by Bob Lawler and Bob Wilkes. Congratulations to both of you on your induction into the Hall of Fame. Very well deserved. I have terrific memories from those years. Thank you very much, and congratulations again. Thank you.
Ed Swart, number 58, 1974 City Champs, defensive tackle. Just wanted to convey my congratulations to Coach Wilkes and Coach Lawler. Had a great time.
How you doing? Tony Principe, filming this from Phoenix, Arizona. I was number 78 for our great football program and football teams back in the 70s. Played 75, 76, 77 under our great coaches Bob Wilkes and Bob Lawler. We had probably still the most iconic football team, I think, in high school history. The 1977 team last year, the Gordon Bell won the city championship.
Hey Dad, congratulations on your induction into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. I've heard many times over the years what a great coach you were and how much you meant to your players outside the game. I was lucky enough to have you as a football coach as well, even though it involved film study as a 12-year-old. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Dad.
Congratulations, Dad.
Congratulations. Thank you for all the football fun over the years, teaching me football skills and learning how to run football plays.
Hey, Dad, we just want to say congratulations from your daughters and, of course, Mom. We're dressed like this because we were always so bundled up when you dragged us out to those games on those cold bleachers.
And cheers to beautiful memories and successes in life. Congratulations, Dad. We love you.
Love you.
We love you.
Good day, everyone. My name is Brian Marks, and I'm here to do an introduction for Bob Wilkes and Bob Lawler, who are being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. I think to start with the discussion of them, I want to talk a little bit about Gordon Bell High School and its history in the Winnipeg High School Football League. Gordon Bell in the 1930s and 40s was a major power in high school football, winning a couple of championships in that era. And the interesting thing was, those days they had a practice field to work with, and everyone played their games at the old Osborne Stadium, which was very, very close by. So the kids had a place to play, and the fans could get out to watch the games. But in the 1960s, Gordon Bell High School was moved to Portage Avenue, and the site at Mulvey School was lost. And that produced a real problem. The team had no playing field and no place for fans to be able to watch the games because the Osborne Stadium had been torn down. This caused the football program at Gordon Bell to go into a state of disrepair and the doldrums. And it looked as if the program was in real difficulty. And then Bob Wilkes and Bob Lawler came along. So these two men went into the hallways. They collared everybody who could possibly hold a football or put on a helmet. They beat the drums to get interest going in the school, and finally started to reestablish and rebuild a program against all odds. They had to put players on a bus every day to take them to practice at Tech Bach Field, and after practice was over, bring them back. It's not the kind of things that a lot of kids look for when they want to play football or any sport for that matter. But the point is it worked. The results were impressive. Gordon Bell had 3 championship teams in the 1970s, 1973 and 1974 back-to-back, and 1977. and they were always playoff bound. They were always tough. I played against the Panthers in 1971, and they eliminated us from the semifinals when I was at St. John's. And we barely beat them in 1972 when we went on to our own final. It was quite an issue to be able to play the Gordon Bell Panthers. They featured some really top-end players, including Stan Mikowas, who went on to be a star with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the 1980s and 90s. These accomplishments are outstanding given the logistics of what they had to deal with at Gordon Bell High School. And interestingly enough, after they left, the program was never able to attain the same kind of heights of achievement. It's my pleasure to be able to introduce Bob Wilkes and Bob Lawler to this year's induction class of the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame.
Gentlemen, on behalf of Football Manitoba and the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame, I really, really am happy to induct you into the 2020 class of the Hall of Fame. As somebody who played against your teams and knows what you guys were like as coaches, who got to know some of your players, the stories that you told probably don't even begin to scratch the surface. But I thank you so much for everything that you did to bring football to a school that didn't have it, and to bring a whole lot of kids to our game that have now developed a legacy. So on behalf of Football Manitoba, congratulations, welcome to the Hall of Fame, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's certainly an honor to be recognized by Football Manitoba for the Hall of Fame. Thinking back, we have many, many good memories from football at Gordon Bell, and starting out there was quite a building job to do, and both of us were very much defensive experts, I think, was what our focus was in many ways, and loved that part of the game. And the kids were fabulous. It's just a wonderful experience to take these kids and work with them. We had to take the bus to Tech Vok to practice. We didn't even have a practice field. And every day we would head out there. I remember one day the bus didn't come back, and that we were out there for a long, long time. But these kids were great, and they had a lot of vigor and a lot of nerve, and they wanted to play and be successful. And we had a lot of great times.
And yes, I'd just like to say again, thank you to the Hall of Fame. I'm especially honored in a way that I'm joining my dad, who was inducted here in 2012. Again, what Bob has said is we did have the smallest high school back then, and without a field, made things a bit tough. One of the things, like the two of us, certainly, as Bob said, we're defensive people, and you do need some other offensive people, and we were extremely lucky. We had Bob Keating, Bob Jaskowitz, especially thanks to Dr. Les Allen, who took over when the teachers had work to rule in the early 70s, and we were not supposed to coach. We managed to show up a few times anyways, but Les kept the program going. Graham Simpson was our scout, and I don't know if any other teams had scouts, but he certainly did a great job for us.
He was very good.
Managers to look after things, Bob Follis and Peter Pira. So we didn't have to worry about all those other little things that get in the way.
I think one thing that really worked for us very, very well is that the kids really got into the idea that they wanted to improve their bodies. And so they really worked on the off season. We had a group of kids, particularly towards that championship year in 77, I think, that these kids our offensive line had been together for 3 years, and they had worked out in the off season. And these were kids that in many ways didn't play many other sports, but they really dedicated themselves and lifted weights, and they worked very hard, and we had an incredible line.
That was when the high schools didn't have gyms, and we came up with this new thing called supersets. Remember that? And yeah, they certainly worked away at those. We didn't just have good athletes, but we had leaders also on the team. And we worked hard to start off players out in grade 10. The veteran players were really, both on and off the field, were wonderful at letting these guys know what it was like to play for the Panthers.
One of the things I liked about football too was that every kid could play. We had kids that would not weren't tall, they weren't fast, some of them weren't exceptionally coordinated, but they were willing to work hard. And we had some guys that played, say, defensive tackle that really took that on and excelled and changed their bodies around and became very strong and really were part of a team. And we still have kids today that I know play. We have a group of kids from a couple of years of championship teams that they play every November 11th. And they get their families out there and they have a big football game, and they still continue to do it to this day. It's really nice to see that love for the game going on and the sharing with their families, and the fact that I think playing for Gordon Bell meant something to them. And I think they really treasured that experience.
And again, we didn't get any extra pay for all this coaching, but more than when we meet these fellows now, which are, most of them are well into their 60s, and they tell us how much they enjoyed the experiences from way back then, and the friendships that they've made from way back then. And one other thing I should mention, if you want to be a football coach, you have to have an understanding wife. When you're coming home 3 hours late every day for 2 months, and she's there having dinner with the kids or putting them to bed, it's not an easy thing on them. I think both Bob and I were lucky, and that both Sally and Susan were, they played a lot of sports in high school, and I think they were cheerleaders. They were both cheerleaders, so they were on board, and that made things a lot easier for us.
And our young kids used to come out to all the games and play in the background in the stands, etc.
That's right.
So it was a great experience for our families as well.
Anyways, to sum up, I just think we're very thankful for and very honored for this recognition from the Hall of Fame.
Yes, it's great. It's a great opportunity for us, and we love coaching together. We did have a very similar philosophy, so it worked out very, very well for us, and we worked with some great kids all the way through the many years.
Our philosophy was don't let the other team score. We were both defensive ends and our defense. Anyways, thank you.
Obviously, when you put something as big as this together, there's always some great people behind it. One of them would be known as Football Manitoba's Four Horsemen, okay? Don Vanak, thank you very much for everything you do for football in this province and sponsoring tonight's big event. Right now, though, I'd like to introduce a man that's been synonymous with the Eastside Eagles for a long, long time. Here he is, Ian Brown.
Mr. Al Leach, what could I say? Al is one of the most dedicated people that minor football could have. He started out playing with the Elmwood Eskimos and the Daniel Mack Maroons. He got asked to help out in 1988 when his two boys started playing for the Eagles. He came on the board at Eastside Eagles in 1989 and then on to the executive. He became the MPWAFA, later the MMFA rep, later got on the executive. He served 17 years with the MMFA, including 5 years as the president. Later, Al served 2 years as the president of the Manitoba Midget League. He also served 2 years on the board of Football Manitoba. Al was very instrumental in the Eagles acquiring the first artificial turf for the Pan Am Games in 1999. Al is the matriarchal keeper of our new turf, master of tractorial skills and inventiveness. Once, when snow threatened to delay a high school game, he attached a wood plank to the front of our tractor and cleared the field. Brian Marks later commented that we should patent it. In closing, I consider Al a friend, a partner in crime, and I'm proud to introduce him to the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame.
Al, on behalf of the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame and Football Manitoba itself, I am very proud to induct you to the 2020 Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. The amount of work that you have done in bringing young people to our game and preparing them for our game and continuing to do that with your outstanding work at Eastside Eagles, I can't say enough good things about it. Your career will leave out, but
Yeah.
congratulations. This is a very well-deserved honor for you, my friend.
Perfect.
Take care.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank Football Hall of Fame for inducting me. It's quite the honor. Known a lot of these guys for a real long time, basically 33 years. Good and bad. We've had good times, bad times. Like Ian alluded to, I sat on the MMFA board for 17 years, the last 5 as the president. During that time, we had unprecedented growth in the league. When I left, we had over 2,200 players signed up and playing the game, which was great. High school football came along. They accepted us with open arms. We accepted them. It was fantastic. All the people I've met along the way, super. For the people at the Eastside Eagles that have come and gone, I thank you. You've been a great part of my life. Ian, I'd like to thank you. We've been friends and cohorts and masters of destruction for 33 years. We've never taken no for an answer, and I think that's going to continue for a little while longer. So I would really like to thank everybody again. Thank you very much for this honor.
Time to hand out another thank you, this time to the Elmhurst Golf Club. They do a wonderful job over there off of Garvin Road. Want to thank Darren McMillan and the crew over there. At this time, it's, my pleasure to bring in one of the great coaches here in Manitoba, Coach Mike Watson.
Good day, everyone. My name is Mike Watson, and what a pleasure and privilege it is to be able to be part of this event as we honor the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame inductees. I have the pleasure of introducing one of this year's inductees, my friend, Wade Miller. I can remember the first time I was introduced to Wade. It was in the fall of 1991. This short, thick kid from Sturgeon Creek who came out of high school squatting way more than I've ever thought of putting on a barbell was a new member of our linebacker group. In customary early 90s fashion, we made sure he knew he wasn't special, but he quickly showed us through his actions that he was not going to back down or give up. Those two character traits are traits that he hasn't relinquished over the 30 years I've known him. After 4 pretty good years at the University of Manitoba as a 2-sport athlete in football and wrestling, Wade was a 4th-round draft pick in the 1995 draft. At U of M, Wade played linebacker, but in the CFL, Wade's main role was special teams. Wade was willing to do whatever was needed to stay on the team, number one, and to help his team win. He developed into a special teams demon and was relied upon to be one of the key contributors to that part of the game for the Bombers. You can check out his Wikipedia page like I did for the research of this introduction, but trust me, Wade made a difference every time he was on the field through his effort and his willingness to sacrifice for his teammates. This earned him a great deal of respect from members of the media who selected Wade on the East Division All-Star team in 1997 and 1999. And since stepping on the field with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in June of 1995 until he retired in 2005, Wade was driven partially by the fear of being cut every single day, every single year, as well as the immense pride he took in representing his hometown team and playing beside his teammates. Wade is not one to sit still, so he realized pretty quickly into his CFL career that he should not be resting on his athletic laurels. So he worked in sales in the offseason and more impressively during the season to set himself up for life after football. Remember, he thought he was getting cut every single day of his CFL career. Wade's ability to seek out and find opportunities led it to team up with a fellow U of M alum, Dale Dreger, to create what is now one of the leading recruiting and temporary staffing firms in the city, Pinnacle Staffing Agency. One business didn't seem to be enough to keep Wade busy after he retired from the CFL, so he teamed up with different individuals to form other entrepreneurial entities like Elite Performance Centers, multiple Booster Juice franchises, as well as a few other businesses that have stuck around and some have come and gone. The tenacity Wade displayed during his 11-year CFL career was evident and once again noticed by the media in the form of being named one of the top 40 under 40 in 2007 by the Globe and Mail. That's just 2 years after retiring from football. In 2013, Wade made a huge decision that would impact his personal life as well as the trajectory of his favorite CFL team. He accepted the role of CEO and later the role of president of our Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Since that day, Wade has vowed to build a team on and off the field that will leave the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in a better place than he found it. Under Wade's leadership, the reputation of the franchise and the results on the field, 2019 Grey Cup champions, that they have experienced a complete 180 transformation since 2013, and our Bomber fans are appreciative and loving every minute of it. Despite the setbacks like our recent COVID-19 experience we all have suffered through, Wade's woken up every single day with the goal of improving football in Manitoba, giving our Bomber fans a great experience, and to find a way to keep the Grey Cup in Winnipeg. That hasn't changed since 2013, and that is consistent with the type of person that Wade Miller is. My only question to Rick and the group at Football Manitoba who decided that 2021 should be the year to honor Wade's contribution to football, what will we do when Wade has brought back 2 or 3 Grey Cups to the city? Will he then be inducted as a builder? Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce Football Manitoba 2020 Hall of Fame inductee, my friend, Wade Miller.
Thank you, Coach Mike Watson. At this time, I'd like to bring in the commish. I'm not talking about Michael Chiklis. I'm talking about the commish of the Canadian Football League. How about it for Randy Ambrosie?
Well, I want to start by offering my heartiest congratulations to my friend and colleague Wade Miller on his induction into the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. You know, Wade's got an incredible story. Obviously, the son of a Bomber, played a great career at the University of Manitoba and then went on to an 11-year career with the Bombers. Started on the practice roster through sheer hard work and tenacity. Went on to make all-star teams and set records. And then after his great career, Wade has brought that same passion and enthusiasm to his life as an executive in the CFL. Brought a Grey Cup back to Winnipeg after a 29-year drought. And, Wade is well respected amongst his colleagues around the league. And as I say, Wade, congratulations, well deserved. And I'm proud to be your colleague.
Wade, on behalf of Football Manitoba and the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame, I am more than proud to present you with the induction to the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame class of 2020. I have known of your career since you and I first met in a blue gold game and managed to do things that Cal Murphy got mad at us about. But your support to minor football in this province is unparalleled by anybody that I know of. You have been just a supporter of every part of everything. Wade, congratulations. It is my pleasure and my honor, sir.
Thank you. Honored to be selected by the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame for this induction. I want to congratulate everybody else that was inducted, and we have such a great football community. Honored to be the president and CEO of the Winnipeg Football Club now and represent us in professional football in our great province. Grew up playing football through minor and high school and then the University of Manitoba. So my football's all been in Manitoba, and just proud to represent all the players that have played before me and to help grow this game as we move forward out of this pandemic. Thank you again to the selection committee and to everybody involved in the event.
At this time, a big shout out to one of our major sponsors, Joe Pisecki from Maximum Wealth. Thank you very much, Joe, and honored to be able to introduce to you, well, one of my favorite people, the man they call Sarge. Here's Bob Couric.
Hello, my name is Bob Couric, a member of the Football Hall of Fame Selection Committee. It was this committee that asked me to make this presentation to Bernie. Bernie and I go back a long way. Over 60 years ago, we played on a high school team, the Techwauk Hornets, who won a city championship in 1957 and a city championship in 1958. In 1958, Swan River challenged us to the provincial championship. We accepted. They came to town, and we sent them home crying. In high school, Bernie and I ran track. That's a little bit of a laugh. We entered the half mile and the mile races, and I can remember one race rounding the last corner of Sargent Park. We were moving pretty good, I thought, until I looked up 20, 30 yards ahead of us were the 2 runners in first and second place were finished. Bernie then played for the 1961 St. James Rods junior football team that won a Canadian championship. That team was inducted into the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame. At that point, Bernie decided it was time to go into officiating. It was a good move on his part because I don't think he would have gone very far as a player. Back to the reason we're here, Bernie spent over 59 years as a referee. He must have done an exemplary job of it to last that long. All the way from Pop Warner to Bantam, Midget, Juvenile, Intermediate, High School, Senior, University, and the CFL. Bernie was inducted into the Winnipeg High School Football Hall of Fame in the officials category, and it is my honor to present Bernie with his induction into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame in the category of official.
Bernie, on behalf of Football Manitoba, the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame, it is my absolute pleasure to induct you into this year's 2020 class. You have been a stable effect on young referees in this province. You have mentored many former football players who became referees and followed your footsteps. I am so happy that you are receiving this award in terms of what you have done. The recognition is long overdue, and I congratulate you, sir, on an excellent job, an excellent career.
Thank you.
As I enter my 60th season of officiating football, it would not have been possible without a loving and caring wife. Next month, we will be celebrating our 61st anniversary, and I just turned 81 last month. So it's time for me to slow down and enjoy my 8 grandchildren and 11 great-grandchildren who are quickly growing up. I would also like to thank the football community of Manitoba for allowing me the privilege of officiating for so long. Time flies when you're having fun. 56 of those years have been on the Bomber sidelines as support staff, yardstick crew, communications coordinator, assistant timekeeper, and on the headset with the command center. It has been an enjoyable journey for me.
You can't have a night like this made possible without some great people behind that. A big shout out to Doug Krochak, the man they call Otis. Thank you very much, Otis. At this time, I'd like to call in, well, one of those guys that sponsors tonight as well. How about a hand for Don Van Ack?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members of the Hall of Fame. As a member of the Hall of Fame, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Laura Shea to the Hall as a builder. Laura started her journey as a parent, that when she became a manager of her son's football team with the St. James Rods. To this day, she is still involved with the growth of the Rods Football Club. She has held many executive positions with the Rods organization, including president from 2005 to 2017. As an outsider, we recognize the work that the coaches put in at the football field, but we rarely see the people behind the scene. But without those people doing the drive of fundraising, maintaining equipment, writing policies, there would be no football program. For those tasks, I thank people like Laura Shea. Her commitment to amateur football did not stop at the Rods. She has been involved in a number of different capacities within the football community, both provincially and nationally, including being on a board member of and past president of Football Manitoba. She's been the past president of the Manitoba Major Junior Football League and a supporter role in the growth of young girls in football, and served as the VP of Administration for several years at Football Manitoba. When at Football Manitoba, I personally had the pleasure of working alongside Laura. Laura revamped many of our policies and procedures still in use today. Over the years, our paths have crossed many times. The hard work and dedication presented by Laura makes her a worthy candidate to enter the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame in the Builder category. At this time, I'd like Laura Shea to come forward.
Laura, on behalf of Football Manitoba and the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame, I congratulate you on your induction into this 2020 class of the Hall of Fame. And I wish you continued success and hope you very much stay in the game. Also, we have for you a Football Manitoba Hall of Fame hat and golf shirt. Thank you very much, Laura.
Okay,
and a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased and honored to receive this induction to the Hall of Fame. Over my 26 years of being a volunteer, I certainly have come across thousands of people in the football community, all with the focus to make football great for the participants, including the players and the coaches. In particular, I'd like to recognize the St. James Rods and the Manitoba Major Football League, as well as Football Manitoba, as being the three organizations that I've devoted most of my time. So thank you very much, and this has been terrific.
All right, my pleasure to introduce to you one of my paisan. I know probably growing up, he, like I did, thought football meant something completely different in the world of soccer, but he learned real fast here in Canada that, of course, football meant football, and he's a part of the St. Paul High School program, one of the best in the province. Please put it together for Carmen Militano.
Hi, my name is Carmen Militano, and I'm honored to have the opportunity to say a few words about Len Sitter in celebration of his induction into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. After high school, Len went on to Brandon University, where he played from 1967 to 1969. He was Brandon's starting center from 67 to 69, and in 1970 was a former draft choice of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. As a testament to his leadership even then, Len was the most valuable player of the Bobcat football team in 68-69 and also served as its captain. His efforts earned him a spot on the all-time college cap Bobcat football team. Len was inducted into the Brandon University Sports Wall of Fame in 2015. I've had the privilege of knowing Len Sitter since I was a bright-eyed 14-year-old at St. Paul's High School, where I came to know Len as Mr. Sitter, a teacher who demanded that you show up every day, prepared and ready to engage. On the rare occasion when you weren't prepared, you quickly came to understand that perhaps that wasn't your best idea. As a teacher, Len instilled in us the virtues of respect, hard work, and the need to do your best. Anything else, and you were letting yourself down, and you were letting everyone else around you down. He carried those values onto the football field, where as a coach, he instilled in us that what was at stake was more than just football. I can still hear him saying during conditioning drills at the end of a long practice, "Quit now, and you'll quit for life." I recalled that voice on many occasions throughout my life when things were a little bit difficult. He also held us to a higher standard. You had to earn your right to be on the team, both on and off the field. The rules were simple. Miss a practice because you had a detention, you were cut. Instilling self-discipline in a teen is something that pays dividends for one's whole life. Len was part of many firsts in St. Paul's Crusaders football. He led us to the championship game in 1975, a game that, although we lost, was the first time that a St. Paul's team had made it that far. I had the privilege of serving on his staff as an assistant coach when we won the championship in 1982, again a first in the history of Crusader football. Who can ever forget the image of Len holding the cup over his head? As a mentor, he continued my education and taught me the value of intense preparation, how to make the most of the talent that you had on your team, and how to bring out the best in everyone. As a friend, I saw firsthand Len's devotion to his family, to his wife Carol, and to his children Jennifer, Kathy, and Mark. Len was and is a man of faith, a man of service, and a man of excellence. To my teacher, my coach, my mentor, and my friend, and on behalf of the hundreds whose lives you touched through football, thank you and congratulations. I can't think of a more worthy recipient of this honor.
Good day, everyone. I'd like to begin by thanking Carmen Militano for that kind introduction, for his friendship, and for the support over the years. I also would like to extend my gratitude to the selection committee, especially Rick Henkowitz and Bud Ulrich for bestowing this honor upon me. Carmen's introduction provided some background into my early playing career. Well, it actually started when I was a skinny, would you believe, grade 9 student at St. Paul's, and I was encouraged to participate in intramural football, which I had been knocked down more times than I'll ever admit, and I fell in love with the game. And it was rather fitting that my football career and love of the sport began and ended at St. Paul's. My first coaching stint began in 1971 as an assistant, and it was followed by years as a head coach from 73 to 76, and in the early 80s and the early 90s. Those first 2 years as an assistant coach in 71 to 73 provided me the opportunity to find out who I was as a coach. When I began as a head coach in 73, that was another matter, for I was able to rack up a very impressive account of a number of mistakes, miscalculations, and of course near disasters. As a former St. Paul student, I knew about the history of the Crusader program, but now it was up to me to provide a sense of direction for the very, very immediate future. St. Paul's is a all-boys university preparatory school, catering to mainly Catholic boys throughout the city of Winnipeg. And in the 70s and early 80s, the enrollment was under 300, and this allowed a very limited amount of availability of students, which mostly were younger and somewhat undersized compared to the competition. And as I saw it, we had a rich history to build on, but there were certain structural disadvantages which I had no control over. So I decided to spend a lot of time focusing on the things that I could control. With extra work and attention, I tried to turn those disadvantages into competitive ones. In the early years, it was only Jeff Chipman and I that were coaching, just the two of us. So together, we developed habits, systems, and strategies that would eventually lead us to have that competitive advantage that we were seeking. We also embraced innovation and improvisation to keep our opponents guessing and to capitalize on our strengths and weaknesses. And we kept that on through the 80s and 90s. These efforts eventually led to results in the certainly positive ones in the win column, but most importantly, pride in our players and the confidence in our program as well, not to mention respect from our competition. The overriding philosophy of St. Paul's is being a man for others. And as a coach, I took this to heart, and I always made sure that this was the core to the team culture. It is a real pleasure to see how many players have returned as assistant coaches to give back to the program. What is even more gratifying is to hear how their playing experience was so formative to the men they have become. Reflecting upon those early years, I am in absolute awe of the present Crusader program that has attained national recognition for excellence. Yet it continues to attract alumni as coaches, and all the while remaining true to the general school philosophy, a man for others. It is indeed humbling to have played a small part in the evolution of this incredible program. I would like to close by extending a thank you to the Jesuit Fathers of St. Paul's for providing me with the opportunity to teach and coach there. To the players I had the privilege of coaching, to the assistant coaches and team managers I had the pleasure of working with, and to my family, especially my wife Carol, for all the understanding and sacrifice that allowed me to follow my love of the game and pursue the adventure of coaching Crusader football. Thank you to Football Manitoba for this honor.
Thank you to Football Manitoba, of course. It's in the title. They have to be one of the sponsors. What a great night it's been so far, and we continue on showing some love to some great people behind football right here in Manitoba.
Hello. My dad, Victor Solello, was born on November 22nd, 1928, and was raised in the north end of Winnipeg. He grew up on Boyd Avenue near Blessed Virgin Mary Ukrainian Catholic Church. In a vacant lot near the church, he and his cousin, Steve, would throw passes to each other for hours after school until their arms were sore. Football was their favorite sport to play as teenagers. Dad went to Isaac Newton High School, and while he always admitted he wasn't the best student, he worked hard to become one of the best players on his school's football team. He played center on offense and linebacker on defense and was good at both positions. Dad played a big part in Isaac Newton winning the inter-high school, city, and provincial football championship in 1946. In 1949, he played junior football for Winnipeg Light Infantry, along with his cousin Steve. Dad was named the center on the 1949 Junior Grid Dream Team. In the October 14, 1949 issue of the Winnipeg Free Press, the headline read, "WLI tames Weston 4-0. Dad made a big play in a playoff game, according to sports writer Al Hooper. Center Vic Solello was perhaps the game's standout performer. His socking blocks and brilliant linebacking were largely responsible for making the Army line what it was. He saved his masterpiece for the last minute of play. With the score 4-0, the Wildcats made a last desperate bid that brought them from their own 6-yard line to Army's 40. On the next play, Weston quarterback Ray Russell twirled a bullet-like pro pass over the line, but Big Victor struck out a proportionately huge paw to pull in the pigskin, like an anxious mother. The fantastic one-handed snag snapped Weston's backs, and 5 plays later, all Armies, the game was over. In the 1926-1949 issue of the Winnipeg Tribune, the legendary sports writer Jack Matheson wrote, "The league this year produced the best crop of centers since the war, but Vic Solello gained a slight nod over the others." Solello was particularly effective for the cadets in the last 3 crucial contests, but his play all season long has been little short of sensational. I remember Dad telling me that he always really looked forward to games, but his father would remind him that his chores in his family's large vegetable garden on Boyd Avenue had to be completed before he could head to the football field behind the old college theater. He chuckled when he said he'd dig potatoes so quickly they would fly out of the ground so he could get to his games on time. Dad also admitted that although he liked football practices, being a big guy, he wasn't keen on doing running drills on hot days. He said the last 3 players to finish the drills always had to run an extra lap around the field, and he would smile when he said he was always one of the 3 that had to run the extra lap. Dad did attend a tryout for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, but they had John Brown, an American import who was an excellent center that Dad just couldn't knock out. Not long after the tryout, Dad was hired to work for the CN Railway, and at 19 was the youngest guy at the Fort Rouge shops and the first Ukrainian Canadian to work there. He probably would have liked to have continued playing football, but a good paying, full-time job in the post-war years was just too good to pass up. A few years later, he married my mom Irene at Blessed Virgin Mary Church on Boyd Avenue and started a family with me and my sister Donna. Dad retired at the age of 55, and along the way, he became a very good bowler and golfer. He and Mom enjoyed being with the grandkids, traveled a lot, and often went to sporting events together. Dad followed baseball, hockey, bowling, and golf, but football was still his favorite sport. He always watched closely to see how the centers were doing during TV games and would get worked up when he saw a bad snap lead to a turnover. Dad was a lifelong Bomber fan. I know he would have really enjoyed watching the Bombers win their most recent Grey Cup in 2019. Dad passed away on January 16th, 2015, at the age of 86. We all miss him a lot. I know if he were here today, he would be extremely honored to be selected to the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. Our family is very, very proud of Dad, and on behalf of my family, I would like to sincerely thank the jury for selecting Dad to be a part of the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame's class of 2020. It's much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Mr. Solillo, on behalf of Football Manitoba and the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame Committee, I am more than pleased to be able to present you with your late husband's certificate for his induction into the 2020 Hall of Fame. From what I can understand from the press clippings I read, Vic was one heck of a football player, and certainly the family should be very proud of what his accomplishments were. So again, on behalf of Football Manitoba and the Hall of Fame, congratulations, and please accept this award.
Big shout out to our favorite football team in the province, of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who are kind enough to support not only this event, but Football Manitoba. At this time, a very, very special presentation. We would like to call in Doug Krochak, the man they call Otis.
Doug, on behalf of David Wheeler, who I understand due to a medical condition is unable to make this, we're going to present you with David's plaque for the induction into the 2020 Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. And I trust that you will get this to him and let him know that we're all thinking about him, and we wish him the speediest of recoveries.
I am proud to introduce David Wheeler as a new member of the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. David Wheeler, a more than worthy inductee into the Manitoba Hall of Fame, grew up in the Maples, a tightly knit, multi-ethnic neighborhood in North Winnipeg. It was there where he made friends that would last a lifetime. When Wheeler's friends went to join the North Winnipeg Nomads minor bantam team, David went along, even though he knew very little about the game of football. After a couple practices, the football neophyte caught on quickly, scoring what Wheeler described to a local reporter as 6 of those things in his first game. Those things were touchdowns, and his first game was a glimpse of Wheeler's natural ability. David and his friends went undefeated, winning the inaugural Minor Bantam League Championship. A handful of these friends continued on with David to play for the Winnipeg Junior Hawkeyes. After moving to the Bantam level, where the Nomads lost in the final to the Fort Rouge Packards, David and his friends graduated to Maples Collegiate. The Collegiate opened in 1981, and the Marauders were accepted into the Winnipeg High School Football League, the first non-Winnipeg School Division team allowed to join the league. The team, predominantly composed of first-time football players, anchored by Wheeler and his Nomad teammates. In the first game of the season, the novice-laden Marauders faced the perennial powerhouse Kelvin Clippers. The game was close until the second quarter, when Wheeler introduced himself to high school football fans with 2 scintillating runs of over 40 yards for touchdowns. Behind an experienced line, David rambled for an estimated 150 yards on 20 carries. Through his 3 years with Maples, David was a premier running back, rushing for over 100 yards in 25 of his 30 high school football games. Wheeler, his neighborhood friends, and Maples graduates moved to the North End institution, the Winnipeg Hawkeyes. Playing for 3 different head coaches in 3 years, David continued to display his combination in power and speed that led his Hawkeye coach to compare him to Herschel Walker. Each of his 3 years, Wheeler battled for the league rushing crown, winning the title in 1987 with 1,311 yards, 8 touchdowns on 157 carries, setting a Manitoba Junior Football League rushing record. David also hauled in 16 passes. David was more than just stats. He was a leader of the Hawkeyes offense. The Winnipeg Free Press described it this way: when David is on the move, so are the Hawkeyes. This was on display in 1987 semifinal game against the Thunder Bay Giants. Wheeler was kept out of the game until the second quarter due to a nagging back injury. David entered the second quarter with the Hawkeyes trailing 14-1. David took over the game, rushing for 121 yards on 20 carries, catching 2 passes for 66 yards, and scoring 2 touchdowns. Hawkeye head coach Moa Gagne described Wheeler's effect on the entire team. You could see the atmosphere change when he walked on the field. He was just that kind of person. He's dynamic, he's a team player. I can't say enough about him. David capped the 1987 season by winning the Canadian Junior Football League Offensive Player of the Year award. David described winning the award as the best thing that ever happened to me. I've been fortunate to coach many great running backs in my career. What they all had was a belief that they could score every time they carried the ball. They would only be satisfied when they were standing in the end zone. David described this belief in a quote in the Winnipeg Free Press: "I love to carry the ball. The more I carry the ball, the better I play." Growing up in the Maples contributed greatly to David's development as a football player and a person. Hanging out and playing tackle football over at Frank White Field on Sunday nights, Wheeler learned how to dodge and weave through tacklers while developing a lifelong bond with friends and teammates. These games were highly competitive, often ending with arguments. But once the game was over, they all walked across Inkster Boulevard, a band of brothers. I had an unexpected opportunity to sit with the Wheeler family and watch David's youngest son play for the Kildonan East Reavers. As I sat there, I was able to eavesdrop on the family conversation and gained a completely different perspective of David, the family man, the father, the husband, the brother. I would like to think playing football for over 10 years contributed positively to his development. David Wheeler, the man.
Time to bring in one of the best to ever come out of the North End, Walter Kozlowski, the man they call Koz.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for letting me give you a brief perspective of this larger-than-life individual and friend, Chris Walby. We have been close friends since our high school days while playing community club hockey. Yes, Chris was a very good hockey player and he had a wicked slap shot. Even though Chris was playing junior football with the Rods, Chris played hockey through the junior level until he was beckoned by the United States to come and play university football. Shortly after arriving on campus at Dickinson State University, Chris was the star of the school. Not only was it his size, but it was his personality and humor that tipped the scales in his favor. As his roommate at the time, his magnetic personality always ensured that people were in our dorm room partying or yakking football. I remember one Thanksgiving weekend when everyone on campus had bailed home. Chris and I were only the two left on campus, and some Cowboy students from across the hall decided to invite us to a barbecue of Rocky Mountain oysters, prairie chickens, and diamondback rattlesnake. After our gourmet meal and a few beers, the Cowboys invited us back to their room. Chris happened to notice a milk canister in the middle of the room and decided to open it up. I've never seen him jump so high and so fast when 23 diamondback rattlesnakes were rattling and sticking their tongue out at him. Needless to say, when we got back to our room, he put a towel underneath the door to ensure that none of the snakes got in, and he didn't even sleep at all that night. Chris had a great career at DSU, and even though he was scouted by other larger colleges, his loyalty was always to Dickinson State University. When he was drafted in 1981, he ended up going to play for the Montreal Alouettes in his usual defensive end role. And in his first game as an Alouette, he recovered a fumble in the end zone and got his one and only touchdown. That was a great start to his professional career. It was close to fall when one evening I was stopping into our favorite watering hole, and lo and behold, there is Chris sitting at a table having a beer and watching football. To my surprise, I found out he had just arrived back into Winnipeg and had signed with the Bombers. As he was looking for a place to stay, he moved into my place temporarily until my family came back from Europe. The partying began again. The following year, Chris was making headlines with his new prowess and adoption to his new role as an offensive lineman. He was putting many defensive linemen to shame with his strength, agility, and quick feet. And the accolades started to come pouring in, and it did not take long for the awards and recognition to follow. His iconic status combined with his gift of the gab made him a fan favorite with the locals as well as the Canadian media. It did not matter where he was in the country. The media was always eager to get a quip from him or his insight. Chris always said he was a blue-collar football player who packed his lunch and went to work every day. Not only did the opposition fear him, but his line mates as well. Heaven forbid if his line mates missed an assignment, because they sure would hear about it from Chris before any of the coaches could tell them. The respect level for this giant of a man was immeasurable. He told me a story once of a fellow you may know, Mark Gastineau, an all-star NFL defensive lineman. The Lions were in town for an exhibition game, and Gastineau went up against Chris. Poor Mark never got to touch the quarterback once. Well, in their first meeting in the regular season, Chris was expecting to be paired up against Gastineau, except Gastineau was on the other side of the line. At the end of the game, Gastineau came to congratulate Chris and let him know that he had told the coaches he didn't want to play against them and to have him put on the other side. He also indicated to Chris that he could not understand why he was not playing in the NFL. Well, Chris did get his chance to impress the NFL and actually went down to try out at various camps. But in the end, he did not want to pursue any opportunities as he wanted to be close to his family. Family is very important to Chris, which includes his 4 boys and his 4 grandchildren. After his football career, Chris remained involved with football, but on the other side of the coin. His broadcasting career still continues, and even though he'll be 65 in another couple months, he is highly sought after to give his perspective and analysis on the game. You would think this icon of a man is gregarious and outgoing, but when you really know him, you realize he's quite shy and reserved. You would never be able to tell when you hear him speak at one of his countless charity events that he is called upon to help out in. He is articulate, knowledgeable, and witty, and has a very difficult time saying no to anyone who would ask for his assistance or wants to tap into his vast knowledge of football. And believe me, he always has time to sign autographs for his thousands of fans. There is a reason Chris Walby is in the CFL Hall of Fame, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Hall of Fame, the Manitoba Sports Hall of Fame, the Dickinson State University Athletes Hall of Fame, and the Manitoba High School Hall of Fame. Football is one reason, but the other reason is because he deserves it. Congratulations, Chris. I'm proud to be your friend. But I do have one question for you, though. How come it took you so long to get into this hall?
Thank you very much to the CFL being a sponsor of Football Manitoba and what we're presenting tonight. And with that note, why not bring in the Commissioner of the Canadian Football League? And of course, maybe even more importantly, he's a former Winnipegger. Here's Randy Ambrosi.
Congratulations to Chris Walby on his induction into the Football Manitoba Hall of Fame. Man, there are so many things to say about Chris. 16-year career in the CFL, 9 times CFL All-Star, 3-time Grey Cup champion, twice named the CFL's outstanding offensive lineman. And just about everything you can say about Chris's career speaks to excellence and passion and tenacity. And I also know that while I never had a chance to play with Chris, all the guys that did, that are, that I've come to know along the way, say he was just an incredible teammate. Just about everything that Chris did as it related to his career in the CFL is nothing short of spectacular. So Chris, in addition to everything else, you were also an offensive lineman, obviously the most important position in all of football, and you did yourself proud. You did the game of football proud, and congratulations. It's an honor to be part of celebrating this great milestone for you, but also great to call you a friend.
Chris, on behalf of Football Manitoba and Football Manitoba Hall of Fame, my pleasure to present you with your certificate and your induction to the Hall. And I thank you for everything you've done for football in the province of Manitoba. You've been a role model to many young lads that have just followed your footsteps and gone through. Testament is the amount of kids we now have in the CFL from our high school football league. So the St. John's Tigers, St. James Rods, they all thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Buzzard.
Thanks.
I mean, Rick. Thank you. It's really a pleasure. I tell you what, I'm extremely honored and grateful to have this induction into the Manitoba Football Hall of Fame. Thank you for those who recognize me and understand that football has been a very big part of my life. Had it not been for my early years in football, I don't think I'd be standing here today. But I just want to say it's a great thing. I enjoyed football. I played, and I probably still play, but I'm getting old now. I got to get my pension. Anyway, but I really want to just say from the bottom of my heart, it's an extremely big honor for me to be here today, and I want to thank you all for having me in this Hall of Fame.
Wow, what a great night it's been. Thank you for letting me be a part of it. Joe Aiello, once again, wishing all of our inductees a congratulations, and of course, this is the ticket. We hope to see you live and in living color real soon. Thank you, Football Manitoba, and congratulations once again to the class of 2020.